Some of the hottest books in the world are down immensely right now. But let's get into the real reason why it's happening. The health of the comic book marketplace. Hit the like and subscribe. And Jem, can you believe it? As much as 40 to 50% of our audience watching this video are not subscribed to the channel.
Tom, that is unbelievable. Make sure to hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Number 10 on the list, we've been talking about Silver Age Spider-Man keys for some time now. We got ASM number 6, the first appearance of the Lizard.
The 2.5 is selling for $700. That's up 4%. The 3.0 just sold for $899. That's up 6%. And the 4.0 sold for $1,175, up 18%. The 5.5 is up $1,500. That's 5%. And the 6.5 is selling for $2,472. That's up 17%. Is it the low census count? 12-cent Silver Age Ditko goodness? The safe bet that ASM Silver Age keys bring when considering the investment? Or is it the new PS5 game that's coming out in as little as 2 months?
Well, there definitely hasn't been any movie news regarding the Lizard. So yeah, that 10-minute gameplay trailer, that could be getting people more excited for the Lizard. I mean, did you see him underwater?
I always thought my biggest fear would be being under the water and watching a shark come at me Jaws style. Nope, take it back. It's all about the Lizard. That guy looks terrifying.
A ton of sales over the last week for this book, but to really determine the value, you tend to look at the high grades. The 9.6 had a record high of $33,600 just back in September of 2021, but the last GPA sale in March of this year was $26,400. A huge drop, but honestly, how many of us are spending $20,000 to $30,000 on just one comic? So then you got to look at the low grades. The 0.5, where there are just 56 copies, sold for a record high of $450 in November of 2021, and that's for an incomplete page 12 missing copy. Now that same book with that same grade and that same missing page just sold for $386, so just about a $70 difference. So just a slight drop when you consider that entry-level grade, which is the majority of collectors.
Download the best comic app in existence. You're going to support the show, but you're going to enhance your comic collecting so much. I used it all weekend long while I was at Toronto Fan Expo this past weekend. And shout out to all the homies I got to meet. I haven't been to Canada before, and I got to meet so many fans who watched the show for the first time. Use code TOM101 on Key Collector Comics. When I was doing my hunting, I was regularly checking my Key Collector Comics, like save searches, looking at what comics I already own and have cataloged so I don't accidentally buy something again. And when I have a book that's lower grade and I find a good deal, I'm figuring out if I need to be upgrading my comic books.
Not only will you get key alerts, but also access to the Hot 10 before this video comes out.
And then we got a big premiere issue at the list at number 9 with Iron Man number 1 from 1968. We have the first ongoing title series featuring Iron Man, and the 5.5 is going for $780, 20% over its recent 12-month average. And the 8.0 and 8.5 are selling for the same amount, $2,000. The first 8.0 for an increase of 36% and the 8.5 for an increase of 7%. Let's make this make sense. Since the last time we chatted about this book a week ago, there's been an increase of 25 copies added to the census for a major key book that is old as hell and has sold for way more money in years past.
Nothing new on the movie front when it comes to Tony Stark, just those rumors that we may see Tom Cruise play some sort of Iron Man in the MCU. We do have some eyes on the book, an 8.0 and an 8.5 sale, and a new 9.6 hitting the census.
With so many books being added to the census in just one short week, and this isn't the only example we have, stay tuned. It appears that the supply is clearly meeting the demand on a book that is wanted for many reasons. It's pretty dope, but also more affordable than it has been. These prices are only going to go so low before members are going to inevitably pick them up, making them some of the hottest books in the world. So yeah, we can complain. It's a valid complaint. Criticism. The comic books are taking a hit because of how fast the grading companies are pumping out the grades. But you can also thank the grading companies because it means the comic books are adjusting price in real time, making some of the most affordable hot comic books we've seen in years.
For the 4th time this year, we're seeing Iron Man 1 show up on the list, and it's funny that we're seeing these number 1 issues show up more than the first appearance. But you know who else keeps showing up? Number 8 on the list, we've got All-Star Comics issue 58, the first appearance of Powergirl.
Speaking of high census count increases, since we last chatted about this book back in July, where it ranked number 7, we've seen 52 new copies added to the census, 2 of them being graded at 9.8, 13 of them graded at 9.6, 2 graded at 9.4, 4 graded at 9.2, and 4 graded at a 9.0. But unlike Iron Man, this book is holding strong for no mainstream reason that we can tell.
The first appearance of Powergirl has shown up 9 times this year for no reason whatsoever, just wishful thinking that James Gunn will do something with the character. We've got a CGC 8.0 selling for $198, 24% above its 12-month average. The 8.5 is up 34%, selling for $255. And then we got the 9.2 selling for $400, 41% above its 12-month average, and 2 copies outsold that average this week.
October 31st, there's going to be a Supergirl special where Powergirl is going to be making an appearance. That's really the only thing in comics besides heavy utilization of the character over the last year. People love Powergirl, and they love specking on Powergirl too.
Yeah, I think fans are hoping that Powergirl gets the same treatment as this next character. Number 7 on the list, we have Invincible. Number 1, the first appearance of Mark Invincible, Omni-Man, and so many others. A universe that was created by Robert Kirkman and then finally shown in its glory in its animated series back in 2021. We're ramping up for season 2 with the first 4 episodes this November and then getting the rest early 2024.
The book is down in high grade, but the 9/8 hit $6,000 back in 2021. So yes, it seems like it was a steep fall, but that was at the start of the spec. Well, now that the comic books have adjusted a bit and there's been a tremendous amount added to the census, we're seeing them kind of come back to reality. The 9.0 is selling for $930, an increase of 12%. The 9.2 is selling for $970, an increase of 3%. The 9.4 is selling for $1,100. Broke the $1,000 marker where it could have been purchased under $1,000 all year long for an increase of 13%. And then the 9.6 had 2 different $2,000 sales take place where this book was averaging close to $1,500, an increase of 35%. Season 2 has a lot of people putting money down now more than all year. However, with that gap in between the first 4 episodes and the remainder of the season, my question to the comic fam, let me know in the comment section below. Do you think that we're going to see some drops after the 4 episodes debut?
Yeah, I'm wondering if we're going to see the Walking Dead effect happen here, where Walking Dead number 1 would spike up at the beginning of every season. Now, that 9.8 $6,000 sale, that was kind of an outlier. The sales were more of around $3,100 to $4,100 around that time. So the real record high looks to be about $5,200, which was June of 2021. And the last GPA sale, $3,250, and that's July of this year.
So the book may appear to be down just under $2,000, but a 9.8 in this book, there's a little over 10,000 even in existence, is pretty hard to come by. But there's been 5 new copies added to the census since I chatted about this book last in July when it ranked on the trending 10 post San Diego Comic-Con.
Which brings us to number 6 on the list, Saga of the Swamp Thing, number 37. It's the first appearance of John Constantine.
The Hellblazer, the first appearance, and a lot of reasons to spec on this book. It landed on the trending 10 just last week and propelled itself to the hot 10 with an increase of copies sold of 283%, but there's no updates. You know, a lot of the spec is pointing towards Keanu Reeves, saying that he is ready to do Constantine 2, but other than that, we got Swamp Thing hype, James Gunn, James Mangold directing Swamp Thing, saying it's going to be comic book accurate, you know, going to appease a lot of Alan Moore fans like myself and Jem. But can't help but think that Constantine is going to be a major character long-term for James Gunn to utilize. Everyone loves Constantine, but how soon will it be that we're going to hear any news about this character?
And that's not even considering the current strikes that are happening. So yeah, that's a long-term play, but the book is still hot. A 283% increase in copies sold this week over last, an 8.0 selling for $250, 3% above average. The 8.5 is selling 4% above average. The 9.0, 20% up, and the 9.2 is up 15%. The 9.8 just sold for $1,800, 7% above its 12-month average.
The heights that 9.8 reached was $3,700 back in 2021, and this comic book had 6 added to the census since we reported on it last, and those numbers were gathered at the time of this filming under 5 days ago. So there's a lot of members buying this book on the low, getting them graded, and I like what you said, Jem. This is a long-term play, and with that type of dip, I like it.
The same thing could be said for number 5 on the list, the first appearance of Miles Morales in Ultimate Fallout 4. More of a long-term play, but so much in store for Miles in the future.
The third part of the trilogy, the next movie is supposed to debut March 29th of next year. A lot of spec has been ramping up since the debut of the second movie, but now it's been delayed indefinitely. The only thing that's happened since, especially when you consider the increase of copies sold and the average prices just going all over the place with this comic book, is an increase of 189 slabs in under 21 weeks being registered on the census.
And 48 of those hit 9.8, which absolutely affected the market, which we'll get to in just a moment. The 9.0 sold for $511, which puts it 11% above average. The 9.2 is up 8%. The 9.4 selling for $550, 2% above average, but 2 copies outsold that average this week, just like with the 9.6, selling for $725, 4% up, and 2 copies breaking that average.
Now, the heights of 9.8 reached over this last week was $1,920 for an increase of 4% when you compare it to the 12-month average, sitting around $1,800. But whoever bought that wasn't patient. They weren't waiting on auctions like you should be if you're hunting for this book, because as Jem said, 48 new 9.8s were just created in a few weeks. If even 25% of those books hit the market, we would see an adjustment on this book, and we did. The most recent 9.8 sale was clocked in at $1,525. That FOMO bug be buzzing.
I remember wanting to jump in at a 9.8 at $2,000, and I'm kind of glad that I didn't, but I still kind of feel like I would have been safe in the long term. Moving on to number 4, we have X-Men 101 on the list, the first appearance of Jean Grey as the Phoenix.
One of the most classic covers, one of the most important X-Men comic books that exists, and one that's perpetually relevant. They've already done this story on the screen multiple times, animation as well, and we're getting a continuation of said animation like it's always relevant, but I don't see them doing it again. What do you think, Jem?
I hope they don't do it again. We don't need to see it for a third time in live action. I could see them kind of making fun of it or doing something with the saga for Deadpool 3, but I don't see that really helping this book long term. But look how hot it is. We have sales that are up in every grade point for 11 grades. We have 2% increases all the way up to almost 20 as far as them selling compared to their 12-month averages, with the 9.6 selling for $2,000.
There's always going to be collectors who want this comic book. The prices are only going to go down so far. And when they do, you see responses like this in the marketplace. That is a tremendous interest on a book that has no real spec reason going for it besides how classic it is.
I think we're going to see a clear example of supply versus demand at number 3 on the list. But before we do that, I heard you got something new from my boy Johnny Desjardins.
We sure do. 1 per box, Boys Number 1, the first appearance key being reprinted with a Virgin variant featuring Homelander by Johnny Desjardins. Join the mystery mail call by going to comictom101.com. The link is in the description. You pay monthly, $34.99 plus shipping, and we put together 4 to 5 comic books, 1 to 2 of which every month is a low print exclusive, and I tend to do a lot of surprises, key books going out at random. And if you want to get a kind of behind the scenes look at how we assemble it, join me on Instagram. Ryan is on there, Jeff is on there, Russ is on there, and we like to throw stuff in the mail call just to hook up our members every single month.
Back to number 3 at the list. For the 15th consecutive week in a row, we have one of the Deadpool 3 champions, Wolverine issue number 1 from the first solo series.
Clearly one of the hottest books in the world right now. Deadpool 3 on the minds of a lot of collectors, but also with the strikes that are currently delaying so many things, it's also the most relevant Marvel movie to spec on. That's going to likely be a blockbuster hit. And the book would be selling for higher if the demand was meeting the supply.
Yeah, that's for sure. 77 more copies on the census since we talked about this book last week when it hit number 5, bringing that total to over 21,000. But still, the sales are there. The 8.0 selling for $180, 58% above its 12-month average. The 9.0 just a little bit ahead, selling for $190, still 27% above. The 9.2 is up 23%. The 9.4 is up 42%, and 5 copies outsold that average. The 9.6 is up 18%, and 5 outsold that average as well. Then we got the CGC 9.6 newsstand selling for $425, and that's 21% above average.
The 9.8 selling for $700 this past week, which is a 2% increase. And the newsstand 9.8, where it was sitting around the $1,200 marker all year for an increase of 30%, sold for $1,650. In the last week, not only did we have a staggering increase to the CGC census, we had an increase of 8 copies graded at a 9.8.
And check out number 2 on the list. We have New Mutants 98, the first appearance of Deadpool, proving that Deadpool 3 is causing the most relevance when it comes to spec.
This book has landed 15 different times on the HOT10 this year alone. It's starting to feel like we're doing the Wizard Top 10. I digress, because in the last week alone, there's been 52 copies added to the CGC census, and 8 of which were graded at a 9.8. Let's get into the numbers because they're all up. The newsstand 8.0 is selling for $360 for an increase of 9%. The newsstand 9.0 is selling for $450 for an increase of 5%. Then, looking at the direct market, 9.2, that's up 22%, selling for $475, and the 9.4 direct is selling for $520 for an increase of 17%.
And let's go back to the newsstands with the 9.4, selling for $579, 14% above average. The direct market 9.6 selling for $700, 20% up, and the 9.8 selling for $1,625, 7% above average.
During the heights of the comic boom, we had so many members submitting comics to CGC that their delays were longer than they had been in years. They had to ramp up and hire new employees. Like, they were literally inviting people to CGC to do grading tutorials, to scout for new people to join their team. And then the adjustment period happened. And then CGC started pumping out grades like they have never done before. You can't underestimate the impact these grades getting out to the buyers and to the sellers faster than they ever have been, at a point where comics are definitely in an adjustment period. It is causing prices to be more affordable than they ever have. It's not just the comic market that is adjusting prices. Those increases in grades impact those numbers as well.
Add that to the fact that this book has been on the list for 43% of the year, and at this point, we don't even know when the movie's coming out.
Let me know what you think in the comment section below, because I think a lot of members are investing now because they think this is a prime time to grab this comic book, just like the #1 hottest book in the world. Hit the like, slap the subscribe button. We're here every single week for the comic fam. Let's welcome Dazzler back to the list at #1 with X-Men issue number 130.
And what's funny is this is related to the Phoenix, as it's part 2 of the Dark Phoenix saga. But yeah, collectors hoping that those Taylor Swift rumors are true and that we'll see her play the role of Dazzler on screen. We got a lot of sales to report on here. We'll start with the 6.5, selling for $120, 56% above its 12-month average. And here's where it starts to get crazy. The 9.0 is up 33%, 3 copies outselling the average this week. The 9.2 is up 46%, 4 copies outselling that average. The 9.4 is up 25%, also with 4 copies outselling that average. And then we have a newsstand 9.4, which sold for $426, 56% above its 12-month average.
The 9.6 hit $580 over this last week. 3 different copies outsold that average for an increase of 46%. The Taylor Swift effect is real, but wait for it, there's more, because we have 3 record-breaking sales to discuss, all in newsstand. The first, the 9.0, last selling in 2021 for $250, is up 15% with an all-new high of $287. The newsstand 9.2, last sold in 2022 for $320, up 20% for an all-new high for the first time in comic history of $384. And then we have the pristine, the 9.8 newsstand, last selling in March for $1750, an increase of 20%. And not one, but 2 different copies outsold that and made a record-breaking sale for the first time in comic history, selling for $2,100. Members are waiting for any type of validation on this character, because I suspect what's going to raise the floor on this book, the real spec, is that we see something on Heritage and we see some type of mainstream interest in this character, and someone just ponies up just a huge stack of money for this book because they want to bet on it. But I don't think it's going to be a member of the comic fam who's going to spend that kind of money. So what do you think in the comment section below? You think this is a good bet? Because 3 different record-breaking sales on a very expensive comic book is very notable when there are no confirmation conversations to be had at this moment. Hit the like, slap the subscribe button, and as always,
geek responsibly and stay minty fresh.
Enough said.